transcription started. And the recording is started.
Okay, so do we see the changes in slides now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Very good. Hello, students, for the first time. This is me. I'm McLennon. I'm a relatively new hire here at CBU. Really excited to be a part of the CBU community and really excited to meeting lots of you. I recently got out of grad school, and so I was really excited for the opportunity to come and talk to you today about some of the many paths to success and tell you a little bit about how you can go from exploring completing your undergrad and going on into grad school. So for a quick overview of what I'll be talking about today, we'll start off by talking about what are graduate programs. So what do we mean when we're talking about graduate programs? What are some of the options that you have? We'll talk a little bit about making the most of your undergraduate degree. So as a first year, second year student, third year student, what can you do to optimize your experiences here at CBU as a psych student? Getting involved in research. This is something that I know lots of students are really excited and interested and eager to get involved in. And so I want to talk about some of the opportunities that you can pursue to get into research as an undergrad. We'll talk about applying for graduate programs. This is a bit more of a monumental task than I think a lot of students realize at the outset. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the steps and give you some tips and tricks for succeeding. And then finally, surviving and thriving in grad school. So again, having just recently come out of the grad school experience, I have some firsthand tips that I think will really make sure that you have reasonable expectations, you know how to protect your mental health, and you know how to make the most out of the whole grad school experience. Okay, we're still doing good for the slide changes?
Yep, we can see them.
Good. Whew. All right, so let's talk a little bit about graduate programs. What are they? It's a very basic question, but a graduate program is advanced academic programs for students who have already completed an undergraduate degree, okay? So they want to further their education with additional degrees, certifications, diplomas, etc. This is a very broad category, and there's lots of different programs that a student could pursue. So here's the general path that most people would follow. So you went to K-12 school, primary, elementary, high school. And then after that, there was a fork in the road and lots of different branching paths for different people. Some people went straight into the workforce. Other people maybe went on to do different trades or different certifications. And then a subset of people decided to go on and pursue an undergraduate degree. And that's awesome. Now, once you completed your undergraduate degree, so once you're coming close to that end of your fourth year, fifth year, sixth year, you're going to start looking for new options again. You're going to come to another fork in the road. And there's many different paths you could take at this point as well. One of those paths is to continue on to grad school. Now, really important disclaimer. I don't want you to walk away from this session thinking that there is one select superior path for anybody. And I don't want you to think that what I'm recommending is that every undergraduate student should consider going to grad school or should definitely go to grad school. It's a fun opportunity to consider, but there's no one set path to a successful and rewarding career, okay? Your job as an undergrad right now is to figure out what path makes the most sense for you. You figure out, okay, when I wake up in the morning, what am I most excited to do? What are the things I love about my undergrad? And where can I continue in my studies or in my work life to get more of those things that I love, okay? That's what really finding a successful, rewarding career is all about. Maybe that's grad school, maybe that's not. This is a reflective process and something that's really individual to you. So, popular paths for psych students, okay? So I want to start off by talking about the biggie, the one that every student, I think, in my intro class kind of comes to class on day one expecting that this is going to be the career for them, which is clinical psychology. So pursuing graduate studies in clinical psychology, usually that's in the form of a master's followed by either a PhD or a PsyD. This is one, I think, very popular path, at least in terms of students' interest. So being a clinical psychologist involves training in clinical assessment, diagnosis, and treatment of different psychological disorders. Really important social role, one that's really direly, we're in dire need of more clinical psychologists, especially in Atlantic Canada. So this is no doubt an awesome, appealing, important role. In Canada, this is a highly regulated field. It's accredited by the Canadian Psychological Association, or the CPA. It's also a highly competitive program. So every year, every clinical psychology program in Canada is going to get hundreds, if not maybe 4-digit numbers of letters of application, and only around about 1 to 3% of those will be accepted, right? So we're talking really, really competitive programs. This is an important thing to keep in mind when pursuing an undergrad in psychology and planning your next steps. It's important to realize that clinical psychology is, if you want to go for it, definitely go for it, but it's important to have backup plans given how highly competitive it is. Another related alternative is counseling psychology, similar path. You do a master's, which is around about 2 years, followed by a 4 to 6 year PhD. This involves counseling clients who may not have been diagnosed with disorders, but are still in need of help nonetheless. Okay, so this is also a highly regulated and highly competitive field. So if there's one piece of advice I can give is that if you want to pursue these, that's awesome, but keep other things on your mind as well as backups or alternatives. There's lots of really cool career pathways that might even be even more rewarding than these for you. I encourage you to check out the CPU website for more information about these accredited programs, because that accreditation is really, really important. And of course, I'll be sharing my slides at the end of this, so anybody can have access to them and see all of these links. I think what most people oftentimes overlook when they're thinking about wanting to be a clinical psychologist is that the things that they really want to do, engaging with people, connecting, helping people out through counseling, et cetera, you can achieve that through social work. Okay, so social work you can pursue as a BSW or a bachelor in social work, some masters in social work. Social workers fill so many important roles in society, whether that's counseling, policymaking, community capacity building, health promotion, research, interprofessional collaboration, literally everything. Social workers are the glue of society, in my opinion. They're doing absolutely amazing work in so many different fields. And luckily, there is a Bachelor in Social Work coming soon to CBU. This is a really, really exciting possibility. So it'll be like a 4-term program, 4-term, not 4-year, consisting of coursework, practicum placements in the community, and a final project. This will offer specialized streams for mental health or working in Indigenous communities. Really awesome perspective program here at CBU. Really exciting. That could be here as soon as, I think, within the next few years. So check out the CASW website to see what social work is all about. Again, I think this is something that oftentimes students overlook. Although I have to say, I've been talking with lots of students here at CBU who are gunning for social work, and that's awesome to hear. I'm so excited about that. So please, I encourage you to check this out. Experimental psych programs. Okay, so this is what I did. This is the path that a lot of people interested in pursuing academic studies in psychology would be interested in pursuing. So this is a combination of coursework, comprehensive exams, research projects, and co-op placements in some cases. So you're doing a lot of different things. You're doing your own research as well as pursuing more coursework as a student, etc. You're being trained to be a really data savvy empirical scientist, and you're opening the door to many potential career paths. Whether that's continuing in research, whether that's with big research firms or governmental agencies or at universities, but you're also being trained to go into industry. I have lots and lots of people that I knew from grad school who are now having really awesome, fulfilling careers working in the private sector at cool startups and doing a whole bunch of different things that I don't think they ever would have imagined doing when they started their graduate school career. So there's also course-based and applied master's programs. So this is a greater focus on coursework and practical experience than on research. These are typically 1 to 2 year programs that have a real specific focus on developing your practical skills or giving you particular certifications. And these are great stepping stones towards other professions and programs. So for example, if you were really interested in pursuing speech language pathology, doing an applied course-based master's might be the right move for you. Yeah, so again, I encourage you to check out Canada's different grad programs by area. So whether you're interested in social psych, cognitive psych, developmental psych, like me, I encourage you to check out just a list of all the programs that they have here in Canada. You can click through, see some of the awesome researchers that are out there, and maybe stumble upon something that sounds really right for you. Okay, so now I'm going to segue into making the most of your undergraduate degree. Folks in the call, feel free to weigh in or jump in at any point if there's anything I'm missing or anything you'd like me to clarify, etc. But in lieu of that, I'm going to be continuing to talk about making the most of your undergraduate degree. So now this is for you 2nd and 3rd year students out there, maybe even you 1st years who are really thinking, okay, I'm a new student interested in pursuing psychology. What can I do to get the most out of my time here at CBU? And the answer is there's lots of really cool things you can do. The most important thing that I'd be totally remiss not to talk about, and I feel very passionately about this, CBU offers students one of the most important things that most universities cannot, and that is the opportunity to connect with your professors and build really meaningful mentoring relationships. Okay, this is something that's really easy to take for granted in your day-to-day life here at CBU, but having just come from a university as a grad student that had 35,000 undergrads, I can tell you that you have something really special here in the psych department at CBU. Most universities look like this. This is what your average, not even your intro classes. This is what a third-year course could look like at some universities. Here at CBU, much smaller class sizes. The ratio from instructors to students is much lower. And this is such an important opportunity for you to build these really meaningful mentoring relationships with your instructors and the faculty here at CBU. There's lots of different ways you can build these connections. You can be an active participant in your classes. I know it's sometimes hard, it can be hard to push yourself out of your comfort zone sometimes, but it's really a great way to show that your instructors that you're an active thinker, an active, active student. Ask questions, share your insights, attend office hours and school events, be a part of the intellectual and academic community here at CBU. Share your goals and aspirations with your supervisors. They care about you. They want to make sure that they can do whatever they can to help you succeed. So be open to sharing those things with your supervisors or with your instructors, and yeah, building the relationships that way. And never be afraid to ask for advice and feedback. We have a wonderful, kind group of people here at CBU, and they would always be happy to help you out. So yeah, um, a really important thing, and this is directly related to this building of connections here at CBU. Strong reference letters are incredibly important for getting into grad programs or any program, really, getting any job whatsoever. Reference letters, having people vouch for you and your capacities is super important. So just saying, like, insert your name here, received a high grade in my class isn't going to cut it. Your referees need to be able to speak to you as a person, to your strengths and your goals and your character. And so it's really important that you're taking the time to build these mentoring relationships with your instructors, so they know when they're writing a reference letter for you at at the end of your 4th year, that they're not just talking to you like your numbers on a computer screen, right? Or grades on a transcript. They want to know about you, your experiences, your characteristics. And that's going to be help them to make you a real meaningful reference letter that's going to help you in the long term in your career. Okay. Building your CV through extracurricular activities at CBU and in the community. So volunteer experience is key. This is a really easy thing, I think, to overlook, and for good reason. It's you're busy as an undergrad. You have lots of things on your plate, but many different grad schools in the application process are going to be looking to see how engaged you were outside of your classes in your community, whether that's at CBU or in Sydney and the CBRM in general. So this is particularly important for things like social work and clinical psych. These kind of programs are going to want to see that you're an engaged community member that can balance lots of different things in addition to your studies. Okay, so really important to push yourself to try and get involved in some capacity in something that's really meaningful to you. Get involved with student leadership. This is a really important thing that I think lots of students, it is right there waiting for you to get involved. And I think there's lots of really cool leadership opportunities out there. Student event organizing is huge. So there's opportunities like Bell Let's Talk. They have events that are at universities surrounding mental health, and Let's Talk Science, which is about science promotion and knowledge mobilization. Awesome opportunities for you as a student to get involved in sharing these opportunities and yeah, really showing that you can be a leader in your community and here at CBU. Get involved in the CBU Psych Society. Shout out to all the folks in the call with me right now who are doing a killer job at the Psych Society. I can say that I'm not just I'm not just trying to flatter you all. There are lots of psych societies in Canada, universities in Canada that really are just nominally there and don't do a whole lot. But the CBU Psych Society here is doing a killer job. Kate and Matthew and everybody, you're doing an awesome job. So I really encourage all of you watching this video or in this call to consider getting really actively involved in the CBU Psych Society. Really doing awesome, highly visible stuff out there. Also, become a Psych Ambassador. Really awesome program that you have here at CBU. So I'll put a link here and I encourage you to go check that out. This is a way to be like an active member of the department, to be engaged in volunteer activities. And this is going to look amazing on a CV. So please go check that out as well. Explore the options for these optional certifications that come with being a psych student. So this is something that's very unique to CBU. A lot of schools do not have these kind of optional certifications or these extra things that you can do to put the cherry on top of your undergraduate degree. So one is the certificate in mental health support. This is a really cool thing. You can do this just as a regular part of doing your psych undergrad. It just matters what courses you're taking. You take a series of required and elective courses related to topics such as positive psych, community psych, mental health. Now that's non-exhaustive, and there's some room for electives in there as well. On top of that, you get to make 3 public presentations on the topic of mental health here at CBU, and you get to complete 20 hours of volunteer engagement. This is all approved by a committee here in the psych department. This is an amazing CV builder. I can really tell you that when you are applying to a graduate program, if there's a line on your CV that says you have this kind of certification, people will take note. This is the kind of thing that can give you the edge over some of the other applicants for the similar program. Okay, so really don't overlook something like this. If you can fit it into your schedule, if you can make it work, really do so. Another great one is the certificate in psychology research methods. Okay, similar, you take a series of required courses related to both quantitative and qualitative research, data analysis. You engage in some really cool research practicums and practical experience there. You make 3 presentations related to presenting research, and you get to contribute to psych research in some regard here as part of your regular work at the program. So that could be working as an RA or working with some faculty members on their own research. But excitingly, and we're going to talk about this in more depth later, this also involves working on an honors thesis. So this is a really great way of kind of channeling all of your efforts in a really efficient manner to get this extra certification on top of your bachelor's degree. An amazing CV builder, especially if you're interested in pursuing academic research. So if you want to do an experimental psych program, kind of like I did, and you're interested in pursuing academia on a more serious level, this is killer stuff. This would be a really great thing to have on your CV. So for more information, check out information about these cool certifications on CBU Commons. All right, we're rolling. We're getting through it. So part 3, I'm going to be talking about getting involved in research as a student. And I think this is a thing that lots of students are really passionate about and interested in getting involved in, but they don't really know how. So I want to try and demystify that process a little bit, talk about some of the cool opportunities, things that you can do to get involved in research as a student. So first off, this is a really cool new opportunity that CBU is offering. This is called a Undergraduate Student Scholar Award. Okay, this is an internal scholarship opportunity that's coming from directly within CBU. It's offered by the university to encourage mentorship and involvement in faculty research. It's there to get you involved in the research that's being done by some other researchers here at CBU. It's up to $2,000 to fund you, the student researcher, for up to 100 hours of work over the span of a year. So really, that's money in your pocket and money that's paying for you to get involved in a really cool, meaningful way. Build some awesome experiences that you can talk about in your grad school applications. You can put on your CV. Really awesome stuff. At the end, you get to present some of your work at either a CBU research event and or in a publication for the general public. That could be public facing, that could be something more academic, really cool stuff. So opportunities to really get involved and show that you were actively involved and were being mentored and trained by a researcher here at CBU. Awesome stuff. Eligibility requirements. Broadly speaking, you need to have completed at least 2 terms at CBU. So once you've completed your first year, your first 2 terms, you're eligible to apply for this in your second year. So keep that on your radar, younger students. And you need to have at least a B- average in your last 2 terms. Okay, so that's in the last 2 terms, not overall. So if you had a shaky couple of semesters or anything like that, don't sweat it. You can still be totally eligible for this. It's just your recent academic performance that is what matters there. So I encourage you to connect with faculty members to explore this exciting opportunity. A lot of faculty members may not have had experience with this directly yet, but I'm sure they would be really interested to explore it with you because this is really a win-win for everybody, right? You get paid to get this awesome experiences and they get to have your hands on deck to help them out with their research projects. A really cool thing. Never hesitate to reach out to your instructors just to say, hey, do you think this is something that we could put in the works? Undergraduate student research awards. Okay, similar vein, but this is rather than being an internal grant that's offered by CBU, this is a funding opportunity offered by NSERC. Okay, NSERC is the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada. So this is a body that offers funding for both undergraduate, graduate, and tenured faculty members to do their research on any number of topics. NSERC is the one focusing on the natural sciences, but that also applies to many different psychology projects as well. This is one of the three bodies in the Tri-Agency Council. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them later on. This is a great foot in the door for later funding, right? So you're going to be applying for, if you decide to go into grad school, for funds from these tri-agency council members at many different stages in your career. And if you can slide in and get a USRA early in your career, you are setting yourself up for success. Okay. Now, this is a competitive program, so this is not going to be something that's easy to get by any means, but it's definitely something to have on your radar and to explore with a supervisor. The mission statement of this is to foster an interest in empirical research and to encourage students to further their studies at the graduate level. That's all that this is about. It's about taking enterprising young students who are really interested in considering going to grad school and saying, hey, let's give you a little boost. Let's make sure that this is something you're really interested in and something that you can keep going forward to. It's a real cheerleader effort by NSERC. So this one is $6,000 plus a contribution from CBU for 14 to 16 weeks of full-time employment. So this is like a summer term placement, basically. You get to spend a couple weeks, a couple months just working, getting paid a really healthy salary there to be working full-time at research. Really exciting opportunity. And you can receive the USRA up to 3 times. So this is cool. If you develop a really good working relationship with a faculty member, this is something that you could do over the course of several summers. For example, that's what I did. When I was an undergrad, I applied for a USRA and got 2. And this funded me to go fly down to Atlanta to do some research with chimpanzees and bonobos. So I really credit the getting these USRAs to kickstarting my entire research career, helping me secure funding throughout my grad school experience as well. Really awesome thing to have on your radar. I can't guarantee you get to play with monkeys, but it's still a cool thing to explore. All right, and then the biggie. So if you want to get involved in research, the best thing that you can plan on doing or you can aim yourself at doing is completing an honors thesis. An honors thesis is your own research project that you complete in collaboration with a faculty supervisor. This is a really amazing opportunity for you to say, okay, what's a question I'm itching to ask? What's a topic I'm really passionate about? And I want to dig in and learn more about it. This is one of the funnest things I think you can do as a psych student. It's a prerequisite, or at least heavily advised, for many different graduate programs. So if you're thinking about something like clinical psych or an experimental psych program, you should plan on doing an honors thesis. It's going to be something that they expect almost as like a proof of concept of the things that you can do as a graduate student. It's not required for other programs, but it's always a positive thing. So whether you're doing a BED or BSW, they will not require by any means that you have an honors thesis, but it definitely doesn't hurt. Kind of the reason it's so important for these graduate programs to see that you did an honors thesis is that it really shows your capacities and your abilities to apply your skills and your knowledge to lead your own project. When you're a grad student, you're kind of doing your own thing. You have collaborators and a supervisor, but you are the driving intellectual force, the driving organizational force behind your own research projects. And an honors thesis is in essence that you're really dipping your toes into what it's like to be a researcher. And so graduate programs are going to be looking for that when they're trying to gauge whether or not it's the right program for you. It's, in other words, the stuff that you'll need to do an honors thesis is the exact same skills you'll need to succeed in grad school. Okay, honors thesis requirements. So to do an honors thesis, you got to have 120 credits within a 4-year degree. And 60 of those credits have to come from psychology. You have to have 75% average across all psychology courses and a 70 across all courses in general beyond psychology. You have to complete an application form. So here's a link to the application form that you can find on CBU. I won't bother going through it in detail here, but if you're thinking about applying to do an honors project in your 4th year, I encourage you to check this out ahead of time and to really learn as much as you can about the honors thesis program. In addition to what we're talking about today, reach out to people that you have relationships with, the people in the department, and I'm sure they'd be happy to talk with you about those prospects. Other specific requirements may vary by different degrees. So whether you're doing a BSc, BA, a BACS degree. So yeah, make sure you check those out as well. Visit the department website for up-to-date info on that. Oh yeah, great tip. A really important thing, I think, is it sucks to be, nearing the end of your degree and only then realize that you're missing some key courses that you really would have wanted to have, or that you're not going to be able to fit in on time and you won't be able to achieve your own goals. So I highly encourage you to register for an academic advising appointment just to make sure that you're able to meet your goals in a timely manner. There's nothing more frustrating than feeling like, oh, you're ready to graduate, but then realizing you have to do an extra semester. I know a lot of people who found themselves in this boat. So yeah, register for an academic advising appointment to make sure you're on track. So really quickly, the steps in completing an honors thesis. First off, reflect on what you'd like to study. This is your project, and so you should do something that you're really passionate about. And really, the world's your oyster. There's so many different things you could do. So some things to reflect on when trying to think on what kind of topic you want to approach with your honors thesis. Ask yourself, what are your goals for after graduation? You do not need to reinvent the wheel, okay? I think one thing that a lot of honor students think is that they need to really come up with the most paradigm shifting, groundbreaking study that's ever existed. And that's really not what an honors thesis is all about. Science is an iterative process, right? We all make little contributions and together we move the field forward, right? So just ask yourself, what can I do to build on past research? How can I move our understanding of psychology in this particular domain forward an inch? That's all you have to do, is make your contribution through your honors thesis. And then, if you decide to pursue graduate studies, you can move that forward maybe a foot later on, right? Step 2, identify a faculty supervisor. I did not ask for Peter's permission to use this picture, but based on that pose, I can only imagine he's open to being used as a model in this capacity. So ask yourself, who in the department does research that aligns with my interests, okay? You want to find somebody who will have insight into the kind of methodologies or the kind of questions you want to be asking. Now, the availability to supervise varies, so don't assume that you're necessarily going to be able to work with the supervisor you initially thought you would. A really good way to avoid getting caught off guard here is to reach out early to discuss the possibilities with them, okay? By the end of your 3rd year or the summer before your 4th year, it's great to already be in talks with prospective supervisors so you can start chatting about what you want to be working on. Yeah, you can even start working on some of the early stages of your proposal in the summer leading up to your 4th year. Get some stuff off your plate. All right, so now jumping forward, we are officially in the fall term of your 4th year or your 5th year. You're getting ready to do your honors thesis, and you're actually ready to get started. So one of the first things you'll need to do is register for the honors seminar. So this is a 3-hour weekly discussion-based course where you come together with other honors students and with the person leading the course. Typically, that's Peter. And you're going to get peer feedback. You're going to have writing workshops that are offered by the library. You're going to have lots of really good opportunities to really collaboratively work on your project, get insight from your peers and from your supervisors, and really walk away with a much stronger project than if you were just trying to do it on your own. You have to submit an ethics application to collect new data. So if you are planning on collecting data, whether that's a survey or running an experiment, what have you, it's important to submit an ethics application to the Research Ethics Board to make sure that they can approve it, that it's up to ethical guidelines and standards, etc. The sooner the better. The sooner that you can get your application in, the earlier you get it in the fall semester, for example, even if you're still working on some other aspects of your proposal, the better. As soon as you have an idea of what the methods of your project are going to look like, getting that into the REB will allow you to start collecting your data sooner. Then if we fast forward to December, so the end of your fall term, you're getting ready to submit your research proposal. So this involves, the introduction, literary review for your project. What's your methodological plan? What are your participants going to be doing? How are you planning on analyzing your data? And then what do you expect to find in your results? And how would you interpret that? So basically, this is the sizable first chunk of your entire thesis. Why are you doing the project that you're doing? What motivated your interest in this topic? What's some of the background literature that supports your research questions? What kind of methods are going to be following? And then what are you going to do with it once you get your results? That's brings you up to the end of your first term. Now, jumping into your winter term, you're collecting data and you're going to summarize and share your findings. So you're going to answer questions. So, well, first off, what did you find? What were your hypotheses supported or not? And what are some of the implications of the findings from your project? So sometime in March or April, you'll get the opportunity to share your results. So this will involve an oral presentation to the CBU community. And I should mention that completing an honors thesis is a lot of work. So in the span of 8 months, you have conceived a project, you've gone through ethics, you've developed an entire research proposal, you've collected all your data, analyzed your data, summarized your data, interpreted your data, and then you've presented it to a lot of people. So if that sounds like a lot of work, it totally is. And I don't say that to daunt you, but just to make sure that you understand that this is it's something that you have to put a lot of serious effort into. But I can also say, both from personal experience as a mentor of undergrads doing honors thesis and as someone who did an honors thesis myself, it is one of the most rewarding experiences that you can have as an undergrad. When you walk away from your degree, reflecting on your honors thesis is going to be one of those things that you really look back on fondly and with pride, right? So really, I encourage you, if you're interested at all, really follow up on that. Okay, applying to graduate programs. Peanut Gallery, any questions, comments, anything I can clarify? Nothing? All right. I'll take your silence as a cue to keep going. Let's talk about applying to graduate programs. This is a big, daunting task, and there's lots of steps to go through. I have lots of strong opinions on this. So now this is for my 3rd and 4th year students out there who are really getting ready to apply to grad programs. And I want to make sure that you're doing everything right and setting yourself up for success here. First off, do not underestimate how much time and effort the process takes. Applying for graduate programs is at times torturous. You have to prepare documents, fill out forms. You have to make sure your CV is in order. You're going to have to fill out that CV again in countless other redundant forms online. You're going to have to craft letters and essays arguing, why this is the right program for you, why you're really passionate about it, why they should accept you. You're going to have to be communicating constantly with your referees. The referees are the people who are going to be vouching for you and giving you reference letters. You need to be facilitating with them, telling them, okay, these are the deadlines. Here's what I need from you. Here's where you can submit it, and doing any kind of troubleshooting because they're doing you a big favor. So you got to make sure you're ready to help them out. You might even go so far as to start interviewing with potential supervisors. And so for each of those, you're going to be wanting to, mentally prepare yourself, do a little bit of reading on that professor's work. And again, I don't mean to scare you about that. It's that these are really fun things to be doing, to be interacting with potential supervisors and exploring what possibilities the future may hold. But nonetheless, it's time consuming. I would say in your 4th or 5th year, when you're thinking about applying to these graduate programs, think about it as though you're taking a full-on extra course. It is really going to be a time-consuming endeavor, and it's not something you should take lightly. It's not something that you think you can just phone in or do at the last minute. Not by a long shot. Okay, so really consider how you're going to fit this into your schedule. And this is especially true if you're working on a thesis at the same time. Like I said, working on an honors thesis is a big endeavor. Doing this on top of that, big challenge. So tip number 1, plan ahead. Spoiler, you're going to hear me say plan ahead a lot. Make a detailed schedule with all the deadlines and plans and how you're going to meet them. Having a day-by-day, even hour-by-hour plan about how you're going to allocate your time and your resources to make sure that you're meeting all the different requirements necessary to get your applications in is a really important thing. So plan ahead, be really mindful and conscientious about how you're going to get this done. Next up, good references are everything. I've already touched on this, but it bears repeating. Building a warm and professional relationship with your professors is really central to success. You want to make sure you give your supervisors lots of advanced notice so that they can help you with your applications, right? They cannot be expected to on 2 hours notice, prepare a letter of reference for you. Oftentimes this means logging on to different portals at different universities and filling out their forms as well. It's a lot to ask of someone to give you a reference, so make sure you're giving them plenty of advance notice to help you out. 2 days notice, not going to cut it, but 2 months, that's a little more feasible. Share important deadlines with your references weeks and months in advance, and make sure they know exactly what each application requires of them, okay? So every school is going to have a different process. They're going to need to hear about different things in your honors, in your reference letters. So your referees are going to be needing to modify a lot about what they're writing and talking about in order to make sure that they're giving you all these stellar references. So tip number 2, make your references or your referees a calendar or a spreadsheet with all the important information for them. So that's the links that they need to follow to submit on different university portals. What are some of the guidelines of the things that they should touch on in their letters? Because if you're applying to a clinical program versus an experimental psych program versus social work, they're going to want to hear different things, right? And also, more than anything, make sure that they know the deadlines. There's nothing worse than it being 11:59 and realizing that one of your supervisors was misinformed about the deadline, okay? So make sure you're being very clear with them. Make sure you meet the requirements for the programs you're applying for. This sounds basic, but it's an important one to touch on. I don't know why that happened. Required courses are a really important thing to have. There's nothing more frustrating than realizing you're applying for like a clinical psych program, but oh darn it, you missed an essential learning course in 3rd year, and they're looking for that in order to make sure that you can get into the program. Now, there's loopholes and things you can do to supplement that, but it's way better to be mindful and to plan ahead for what the programs are and make sure that you know that you're meeting the requirements that they have. Really don't make sure you're not prioritizing convenience or personal preference over checking important boxes. What I mean by that is know what courses you need to get through your degree, and don't kind of procrastinate taking certain courses or hold off for a better time slot or an online version when there's an in-person version right there for you. Make sure you're just getting things out of the way as fast as you can. There's nothing more frustrating than reaching the finish line and realizing actually you're kind of in a tough situation because you don't have everything that you need. My bullet that showed up earlier, grade cutoffs are a really unfortunate reality. For some programs, if you fall below a certain grade cutoff, they won't look at your application. So some are very strict, and if you just fall below it, they're looking for any possible opportunity to throw your applications out, to weed out the good ones from the bad ones, even though oftentimes, more often than not, actually, there's lots of good applications that don't get reviewed for silly reasons. Anyway, the point is make sure you're being really pragmatic and you're really mindful about what some of the expectations are. And feel free to reach out to any of these programs and ask them how strict they are about these things, but don't think that you can assume flexibility where there might not be. They will still take your money. I'm going to try not to rant about this, but applying to graduate programs is expensive, and graduate programs will take your money for your application, even if your chances of getting into that program are relatively small. So you got to be pragmatic and make sure that you're not wasting your money in ways that or using them in ways that they could be better spent otherwise. So tip number 3, applying for programs is unfortunately very expensive, so plan ahead and be really pragmatic with yourself. There's no sense going into debt to apply for 14 different clinical programs if it's such a long shot that there's better ways that you could spend your time and efforts and your money. Okay, there's one thing students are afraid of when it comes to grad school. It is the GREs, the dreaded GREs. So these are the graduate record examinations. Traditionally, these are a requirement for many graduate programs, whether that's clinical or experimental. I'm very proud to say, or happy to say, that many programs are dropping it, which is cool. I think there's some very systemic problems with relying on the GREs as a metric for who's going to succeed in grad school. I think we have lots of data that actually supports that GRE scores do not predict your ultimate career success very well, but regardless. Many programs may still have this as one of their expectations. In addition to the general GREs too, sometimes there are psych-specific GREs, which basically just look at your comprehensive knowledge of psychology. So make sure you're paying attention to what the programs you're applying for demand. The major sections are things like vocab, uh, math that you've probably covered in grade 12 but haven't thought about in 4 years, essay writing, argumentative and commentary stuff. Now, this all may sound on paper like something you could just go in and wing, but I assure you it is not. The number one key to success with the GREs is practice. So go out and pick out or borrow from the library a guide to the GRE, something like this, and make sure you just give yourself ample time to practice. There's a skill to writing an essay in a time limit. There are structures you're going to want to follow. There are 14th century Old English words they somehow expect you to understand and be able to define. And the only way you're going to learn that is by studying a GRE book and exposing yourself to that, right? Also, refreshing yourself on grade 12 math. It's not, you may not be a math person, but I promise you can achieve the math that they're looking for. It's not algebra. It's not calculus, but you still need a refresher. So make sure you're doing that practice. But more than anything, I want you to know that the GREs are not the most important factor. If you do end up doing them, don't beat yourself up over your scores. I know some people who are now tenure track professors who still wake up and in a cold sweat because they're thinking about their GRE scores, which is silly. Don't. Your experiences and your references are much more important to many different programs and supervisors. So this is just one thing that they use to get a gauge on what kind of student you are. So the key words here are don't panic, spend some time practicing, and if you can, aim to write your GREs in the summer before your fourth year. You don't want to have this as another thing on your plate in that very busy fourth year. Reach out to supervisors ahead of time. This stock image is not from psychology, but for some reason I thought it was funny, and I love stock photos, so I decided to go with it. Reaching out to a supervisor is a really important thing when you're applying to graduate programs. Just like when you're applying for an honors thesis, it's good to get yourself on their radar and kind of forge that connection before your application crosses their desk. A good relationship with your supervisor is a key to success and fulfillment in grad school, okay? You do not want to be miserable for 2 to 7 years of your time because you don't have a good relationship with your supervisor. You want to really make sure that there's a good personality fit there too, in addition to your research fit. Make sure you reach out before applying to let them know some really key things like who you are, what your background is, any cool tidbits about your experiences. Let them know what interests you about their research or the graduate program you're applying for. Why is it specifically you're applying to them and not to somebody else? And be really explicit about what you're interested in researching. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have a full research proposal. You don't need to have your dissertation draft ready when you show up. But it's important that you can be kind of specific about what areas of research you're interested in exploring. So tip number 5, check out your potential supervisor's recent publications to see where their current interests lie. If you're looking at old stuff, they might have totally moved on and be funded to research totally different projects now. So make sure you're keeping up to date with what the researchers are doing. So here's an example. I took Eric as an example here. If you go on a university website, you can see a quick rundown of what someone's interests are as a researcher, and this is a great way of getting a first pass of, okay, who's doing the kind of stuff that I want to do. So then you take that, you go to PsycInfo or you go to Google Scholar, and you read some of their recent papers, and you're set up for success. Tip number 6, when you're reaching out to potential supervisors, be confident and don't be afraid to share your enthusiasm. Supervisors look for students who will be active, innovative collaborators in their ongoing research. They're not looking for someone who's going to be an underling for them, right? I mean, they shouldn't be. Maybe they are, but they shouldn't be. What they want to see is someone who's like they can bounce ideas off of and get inspiration from and work together in like a real equal footing, right? That's what a lot of graduate supervisors are looking for. They want you to be already like a train of ambition that's already going down the tracks, and they just want to jump on. They don't want to have to be the one that has to hold your hand and guide you. So share your confidence, share your enthusiasm for research. Applying to graduate programs is a big part of that is applying for graduate funding. Okay. As I talked about before with like the USSA and the USRA, these are great foots in the door for later funding. The big one you'll be applying for if you're going to grad school for the first time is the Canada Graduate Scholarship Master's Level, or CGSM. And you can apply for this from any one of these 3 agencies. There's NSERC, which does more natural science-y stuff. So if you're interested in like hard cog or neuroscience, that's the stuff you'll be looking at. SSHRC, is going to be looking at things like more social-oriented or community-oriented aspects of social science research. Now, there's a lot of overlap between those two, and you could basically spin the same project for either of them, so keep that in mind. And CIHR is the most niche of them all, and this is really focusing on health, and so a lot of real health sciencey type stuff. The cool thing about CGSM is that's $17,000 to support your burgeoning research career. Okay, $17,000 to get you started in the research world. And spoiler, you don't get paid a whole lot as a grad student. So this is a great way to make your life a little bit more comfortable. And for a lot of people, this is an essential step in making grad school even feasible. What this involves, applying for this kind of funding, involves composing a research proposal that covers what you plan on studying in your initial flagship projects in grad school. It's totally okay if you kind of deviate from this plan once you actually get there and feel things out and work things out with your professor, your supervisor. But really, this is just showing that you're an active thinker and that you can come up with a really pragmatic, feasible plan that is of interest to the world and has some meaningful contributions to Canadian society. It's awarded on the basis of grades, experiences, and the merits of your research proposal. And it's really great to be able to tell prospective supervisors that you applied for funding to come to their program. So applying for grants is a big part of what grad school is all about, and it's actually a big part of all research is about, right? As you're going through, like let's imagine you decide to stick through and do a master's and then a PhD in experimental psychology. You're going to spend a lot of time applying for these grants to try and make sure that you have the funding to support your interest, right? So tip number 6, again, plan ahead. Check for these important internal and external deadlines for applying for these kind of external grants. And make sure you allocate lots of time to write a great proposal, okay? The deadlines for CGSM, you can apply for this as you're getting ready to go into grad school, even if you haven't been accepted yet. So in the fall of your 4th or 5th year, that same busy semester where you're doing your honors thesis and applying for graduate programs, you could apply for CGSM, and you can apply for it at multiple different schools. So read more into that. Also, I'm happy to chat with you about it if you have any interests in reaching out. So yeah, keep that on your radar. Last thing, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So many psych programs or grad programs are highly competitive. Even candidates with nearly perfect backgrounds won't make the cut. That's the reality. It's a thing we all have to get ready for as you're segueing from your undergrad into your graduate school life. There's going to be lots of what feels like failures, but really you just have to think of as, diversions in your life plan, okay? Notably, this is clinical psych. I know there's a lot of people who are going to apply for clinical psych and be really disappointed. This is just a reality to prepare yourself for. And what I encourage you to do is really keep an open mind and explore other opportunities and alternatives. So clinical was a no-go. Well, maybe you can try your hands at social work or speech language pathology or occupational therapy. The name of my talk here today was Many Paths to Success, and that's really how I see it. There are so many exciting alternatives for where you can go after your undergrad and into your graduate studies. So tip number 7, there are many paths to success and fulfillment. So take some time to explore your options and cast a wide net when you are applying. Okay, I am almost done, I promise. Thank you, participants who are here today and people watching this. I'm almost done, I promise. I just want to give you some concluding thoughts on how to survive and thrive in grad school. So grad school is a big challenge. It is maybe going to be one of the most challenging things you have taken on in your life, okay? There's lots of deadlines, independent work. Oftentimes you feel like an island. Intellectual hurdles. You're really going to be pushing yourself to levels that you've never been at before. You're going to have lots of extra duties and coursework. You might be a research assistant, also a teaching assistant. You might take on extra teaching opportunities. Grad students we know this, at an increased risk for depression and anxiety. So I really don't want to lead you into believing that it's going to be all rainbows and sunshine when you go to grad school. There's lots of things you can do to mitigate the negative aspects and the stresses of grad school. And in fact, I think it's essential that you are mindful and planful about how you're going to handle these things. So it can be really overwhelming without the proper supports and coping strategies in place. So build connections with your peers, forge friendships, and take the time to relax and socialize. Treat this as though it's part of your job, okay? You're going to make friendships in grad school that are going to last you a lifetime. Some of the people that you're going to spend, up until 3 a.m., just chatting about your research and chatting about other things in life, and you're all in this together, right? You're all in this part of your career, this new journey, this new adventure. And so you're going to have lots of opportunities to have these really important, rejuvenating relationships. So make sure you treat those seriously and you don't just lock yourself in your office. A work-life balance is not optional. It is an essential part to not burning out. And be ready to advocate for yourself too. I really hope that if you do make it to grad school, your supervisor is warm and supportive like mine was. But there are some people out there who really try to work their grad students to the bone. And it's important to be able to advocate for yourself and say like, nope, I know my limits. I am working hard, but I also know that I need to take my mental health into account. Okay, so really advocate for yourself there. What does grad school look like day to day? So let's imagine you get accepted into an experimental psych program. Research is likely going to be your biggest priority. That's the biggest difference between being in undergrad and grad school. In grad school, you are going to take courseworks and your grades, you're going to get grades for your participation in those, but that is not the reason you're there. Like that's not the most important thing. What people are focused on, what you should be focused on is your research. What are the cool things that you're doing, that you're learning? And so a lot of your efforts are going to be put into collecting and analyzing data, writing papers, working towards publications, applying for grants, just like those tri-agency funds that I was talking about earlier, attending conferences, networking, talking with other academics. Yeah, there will be some time spent for coursework, and this will be fun and interesting, but also a big time sink. There are going to be times when you're going to be saying, I wish I didn't have to write this paper because I'd rather be, working on my thesis or working on this publication, etc. So coursework is a fun way to expand your mind. Don't get me wrong. It's not a total chore, but it can be a chore too. And teaching assistantships. So this is another opportunity to do some cool stuff, to get involved in a certain regard in teaching. But again, this is a big, and get paid for this. But it's a big time sink as well. And there are going to be times where you wish you didn't have to be grading first year papers when you could be working on your research. So these are just some more things to keep in mind. So the way I want to just finish things off here is I want to talk a little bit about like the many pathways that can come out of grad school as well. So when I started off today talking about what grad programs are all about, I kind of showed that there's many branching paths that come after each of these big, landmark shifts, right? So you finish high school, maybe you go to undergrad, maybe you do something else. You finish your undergrad, maybe you go to grad school, maybe you could do something else. Grad school really is the same way, okay? When you go to grad school, a lot of people, I think, go into it with a very fixed mindset that I'm going to be a university professor and that's the only thing that's going to work for me. But there are 1,000 wonderful careers that can come out of grad school. And I think you need to be really open to trusting your gut and doing the things that matter most to you. Okay. It's important that you say, okay, what are the things that get me out of bed in the morning? Do I love doing research, or do I actually not love doing research that much? Maybe what you love is teaching. Maybe you love interacting with students and getting involved with them there. Or maybe you had a really cool practicum placement and you realize, hey, I would love to get involved in like the private sector. Really, like I think grad school more than ever is a time to trust your intuitions and to not just follow the steps you think you need to be following. Okay. Take note of the things that really matter to you and use that as a guide for where you go. Hey, maybe you decide that you don't even want to complete grad school. Maybe you say like, I tried this out, it wasn't for me. And if anything, I really advocate people going into do a master's before you do a PhD. There are straight to PhD programs, and those are cool, but it's a big commitment to sign on for 5 years of your life. It's better to take things step by step and trust your instincts and make the decisions that are right for you. Don't feel like you're on a railroad and there's only one outcome. Okay. I think that does it for my presentation. So thank you everybody for allowing me to rant at you for an hour. I hope that was cool and informative. And yeah. Thank you, Matthew. I think you can go ahead and probably hand.
I tried to do the applause
Yeah,
thing.
I saw the hand raising.
Yeah.
I interpreted